Think about this. Feminists say they aren't villainizing men, but they do. I browse through more TikToks about man hate than I care to admit. Half the time it appears to be for no reason at all. I can't do anything about that part. Sometimes men and women are just angry people, and they're just nasty to each other. Men do it too. These aren't kind people, and I doubt they contribute much positivity to the world and other parts of their lives either.
Whether you're overcompensating for not being as tall as you would like to be, or displeased with your male genitalia, or lacking skills or duration in the bedroom, that lift kick on your truck and those hours spent lifting weights at the gym won't change anything.
Unfortunately, there's nothing we can say to these people in a 10-minute episode. We just have to ignore them and move on. But for the other half of man hate, it seems to come from a place of feminism, where women are feeling oppressed and there's something about men that needs to change for feminists to feel whole. There's a similar pattern in the black population, where there's something about white people that needs to change in order for black activists to feel whole. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that all feminists and all black activists feel this way, but many do, and it hurts the whole cause. Let's dive into this. If you like these conversations, hit those like and subscribe buttons. My name is Chris, and this is the Think Report. Okay, say you and I meet. I like you, you like me, we establish some sort of civil trust. Then you say or do something that makes me think I can trust you more. So I make myself a little vulnerable, and I tell you a personal story. That signals to you that you can trust me, and you tell me a personal story. Over time, we learn much about each other, establishing a relationship, increasing our respective levels of vulnerability and trust with each other. Because we've made ourselves vulnerable, we have a type of power over each other, but it's balanced with trust. I know some of your personal quirks, and you know some of mine. This is essentially how relationships work. But say I tell someone one of your secrets. You'll no longer trust me. You'll no longer make yourself as vulnerable in an effort to reduce the power I have over you. To balance the relationship, I have to pull back as well. And the relationship deteriorates and we return to just acquaintances. Okay, so now imagine that we're in an alternate universe. We still have a relationship, and I still tell one of your secrets. But instead of making yourself less vulnerable and distancing yourself from me, you continue to make yourself vulnerable and I continue to tell your secrets to others. You say stop, but I continue to do it anyways. This has become an unhealthy relationship. When feminism says that men need to stop toxic masculinity, or they need to stop with the domestic violence against women, or they need to treat women equal in the workplace, they're essentially engaging in a type of unhealthy relationship. From their perspective, men continue to do something they dislike. Yet, instead of removing themselves from the relationship, they continue. Essentially, their happiness is contingent on men doing a thing. If men don't do the thing, they won't be equal. To be clear, I'm not talking about laws that need to be changed, like voting rights. I'm specifically talking about things that men need to change for women to feel whole. Don't get me wrong here. Violence against women is wrong, and workplace equity is good. But continuing to complain and ask for change to something that you have no control over doesn't work. In fact, it has the opposite effect. Women want equal rights, they want equality in the workplace, but if their happiness is tied to someone else's behavior, that's not freedom or equity. By relying on men to change, it infantilizes women. Studies have shown that an individual, when infantilized, is overwhelmingly likely to feel disrespected. If you need another group of people to change in order for you to be happy, then you aren't fully in control over yourself. You can see this in an interview with Julie Bindel, a feminist. She explains a rape case that sparked a movement to stop male violence in the 70s. Let's take a look.
So we were raging against the police for not actually catching this man because they were looking in all the wrong directions. We were raging against them and the press for telling us to be safe, telling us to stay at home, telling the potential victims that we couldn't go out at night, when in fact, the home is the most dangerous place for women and girls. It's where we're most likely to be killed by a former or current male partner. It's where we're most likely to be sexually abused. Rape in marriage had not been criminalised at that time. Things were dangerous in the home for women, and we wanted to reclaim the streets. And so we did. We marched around Leeds and other cities with banners and placards saying, "Men off the streets, end male violence, no to rape." And one night we did this great direct action, which is that we mocked up a load of West Yorkshire police flyers and we put them everywhere on lampposts and doorways saying, "Men, there's a curfew. All men have to be in, off the streets, at home by 8 o'clock tonight." And it worked. For one night, the streets were free of men. Now, this might sound anti-men, but let me tell you why it was not. Because, of course, we shouldn't be responsible for our own safety. Men should not be raping. Men should not be killing. They shouldn't be making us feel scared.
Okay, so less violence is a good thing, male and female. No one should be raping and killing. But to say that we aren't responsible for our own safety is bonkers. Am I responsible for your safety? No. I don't put my safety in the hands of other men. If I feel unsafe, my thought process isn't, well, someone else has my safety in their best interest, so I don't need to worry about it. No. I've been to bars where I felt unsafe. I went to a Hells Angels bar once. Everything about that bar made me feel unsafe. The bouncers were angry and steroided monsters. The patrons were intimidating, and I got the sense that if you got into a fight, you were totally on your own. Needless to say, I never returned to that bar. It would be irresponsible for me to go back and insist that it was everyone else's responsibility to keep me safe, especially knowing that it's an unsafe place to be. How absurd would that be? Feeling unsafe is not a problem that's exclusive to women. Men can feel just as unsafe. And in every case, there's only one person who's responsible for your safety and your actions and your emotions. That's you. So just for fun, let's play along for a minute. Say that it's someone else's responsibility for a woman's safety. Do women really want that? Do they want to give that control and power to men? Does that not infantilize women? That means that someone else is in control over a woman's body and well-being. Is that not the opposite of feminism? Is that not the opposite of the current abortion movement in the US? Feminism strives for freedom for women. We should all want this. It starts with the freedom to vote, then the freedom for equal careers, then sexual freedom like banishment of slutshaming and the availability of contraceptions and abortion. This is freedom. It allows women to take control over their own lives. However, insisting that men need to change in order for women to reach their potential is the opposite of that, which is counterintuitive. Women have the ability to control their own lives. Why would they voluntarily give control to men like that? Now, the counter-argument is that women deserve the right to go to that Hells Angels bar without being assaulted. That part is true. They do indeed deserve the right to go to that bar. But having the right won't necessarily stop assault from happening. There will always be dangerous places, things, and people in the world. It's no one's responsibility but ours to avoid them. It's your life, it's your control. Now, the same argument can be made for certain black activists. There is a documentary called Dear White Parents, which is aimed at convincing white parents to talk to their kids about white privilege. I spoke about white privilege in my last episode, which you can see by clicking on the link in the upper right. The premise of the documentary is that white privilege is what's keeping black people down, and in order to overcome this, white privilege needs to change. But doesn't that infantilize the black community? It essentially means that the black population is not in control of themselves. And in fact, the license for their equality resides with white people. That's horrific.
If white parents don't start having these conversations, I think things are going to get worse.
Why are the police treating people different? Can't they get in trouble for treating people differently?
White people haven't been having these conversations with their children because they don't have to.
This is terrible. The key to freedom with any person is to forge a path that doesn't rely on other people. If you're relying on people for your well-being, you'll be constantly disappointed. I'm not saying that we all need to live solitary lives in order to avoid being hurt by other people. Instead, we should be realistic about how we treat ourselves. If someone hurts us, leave. If someone isn't going to give us what we need, look elsewhere. There are other ways for certain Black activists to get what they need, like starting a Black business or Black TV. Most Western countries already have hiring policies in place that protect vulnerable groups. For example, employers are not allowed to ask you your age, your race, or your religion when interviewing you. But you can also go a step further by mandating IQ or skills tests so that racial bias isn't a factor when hiring a candidate. I talk in detail about these solutions in a previous episode, which you can view by clicking on the link in the upper right. For 100 years, between 1859 and 1958, the Black population formed and played in their own Black baseball league. The purpose of the league was to have an organization where Black players could play, since they were prohibited from playing in the white leagues, which is terrible. Over the 100 years, the white league smartened up and realized that there was a tremendous amount of talent in the Black league that would make the game so much better if included. In 1958, the last official game in any Black U.S. baseball league was played. By this time, all players of any race had been fully welcomed into the National Baseball League. It's a shame that it took 100 years, and it's a shame that this had to be the solution at all. I don't know if this should be the solution for today's bias against differences in people, but the Black Baseball League was certainly a solution that put the power in the hands of the Black population. It didn't infantilize the Black population by putting the power in the hands of white people. You should never voluntarily give your power to other people. It's hard enough to convince people to believe in a cause that you care about. It's even harder to give them power over you and ask them to use it in your best interest instead of theirs. It's just not how human nature works. Steer your own destiny. It's far more rewarding to accomplish your own goals by your own hand. Think about that.